Dude, he's
well,
funny.
if we're good, all right, cool. This is episode 19, right?
Yep.
Seth Hardy, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Dynasty Real Estate.
Glad to be here.
And this was last minute, so thanks. Yesterday, I'm like, well, we were talking, and I was like, we need someone for the show. I was like, and then Noah, I have a closing at noon, so I couldn't. We usually do noon every Friday, so I couldn't make that. And I got to be out in Valpo, and I was like, dude, Seth's always up early. I'm like, hey man, you want to do an early one? You're like, yeah, of course. And we were just talking about like, when are we going to catch up again? I was like, let's do tomorrow.
He's like, let's just do this. You want to come for a podcast? And I was like, all right, perfect, figure it out.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, man. Just and obviously with our background in real estate, with our business, it fits great because there's a lot of people that listen to the show that I would say a big portion of them are interested in what you do. So I think you'll be able to bring a lot of value to those people too, just by talking about real estate investing. We touch on it here and there in our business and in the show, but it'll be cool to hear from an expert from you. So
sure.
Yeah, man. So you're originally from Highland, right?
Yep.
Okay. And born and raised?
So background, we way back.
Way back.
So I was born in Hammond. Well, came home to a house in Hammond. My parents were there for a little bit. And we moved when I was like 5 or 6 to the Highland area. They just wanted to get out of that, out of Hammond school systems, put us in Highland. At the time, they were like, that's a place that we can go. So they were looking Munster, Highland areas, and we ended up in Highland. And I have a twin, and he ended up going straight through the Highland school system. I was in a private school. They kept us separate, probably because we were a little bit too competitive. So they kept us separate, and I think when I was a sophomore, middle or right at the beginning of sophomore year is when I came to Highland. So yeah, not born, but basically raised all the way through Highland school systems. Yeah.
And then in high school, what were you like?
What was I like? So I kind of was just everybody's friend, dude. I had a friend circle everywhere. So like I was a 5-sport varsity athlete.
That's awesome.
And I didn't have enough time to stick with one group because I was with too many groups throughout the year. So basketball, baseball, soccer, football, and track was, I left one group and I was like, all right, guys, see you in class, see you in the hallways, and I'm on to the next group. So kind of just floated. It was everybody's friend, but I was always in sports in some way, shape, or form. So,
So an athlete.
Yeah.
Always working.
Yep.
And that's where, how would you say, because now with Dynasty Real Estate, we can get in that too. So then let's segue that direction. So after high school, you were going to school for, what were you going to school for?
Physical therapy. Always in sports, and I didn't want to be an athletic trainer. Nothing against athletic training. It's just, it wasn't the amount of money that I wanted to make for my family, and I didn't see it. I didn't feel as if I was going to be producing what I wanted my family to have. So it's like, all right, physical therapy is a little bit more rewarding, monetarily speaking. I can still work with the same demographic. So wanted to play sports in college, kept getting injured. I was good at everything, but not great at one thing, because you play 5 sports, it's kind of tough to specialize, right? So I was like, you know what? Let's just go to school for therapy. So went to Ivy Tech, 2-year associate's program to get my foot in the door because I didn't want to go 7 straight years. 4 years of undergrad just to get a degree that was general, and then another 3 post-grad to get my doctorate and start practicing. So I went the 2-year route, got my foot in the door, then got a bachelor's degree and actually started in a doctorate level program, which I dropped out of because company obligations made sense for me to drop out. So,
yeah, dude, that's awesome. And so when did you start your interest in the real estate side of things?
That was also in high school. So before I started reading books and educating myself, I thought that I was the smartest 18-year-old on the planet, and I thought I invented house hacking. So I was just looking, and I was like, man, I can get a house hack going. I was 18. I was like,
which we'll talk about what a house hack is in a minute. But
I was 18. And I was like, all right, if I can buy a duplex and live in one, I don't have any expenses. man, I'm smart. So
Came up with that all on your own.
Came up with it by myself without reading a book. So I was like, all right, I'll try to figure out how to do that. And that's kind of where my head started going after I started reading about real estate investing a little bit. I realized I didn't come up with that, unfortunately. But
They beat me to it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be here if you had came up with it.
yeah, it's kind of how it started. So.
Yeah. And then so then when you were in and going through PT school, what was that process like with the real estate transition? Like were you doing any investing at that time? Were you doing any wholesaling? Like what were you doing while you were still in school?
So
in college?
Yeah, it was tough. So I got the 2-year degree, and I started practicing physical therapy locally. I wasn't doing anything until we hit COVID. So like I was in physical therapy, just trying to save up to do the house hack for 2 years, and COVID hit, and I was like, all right, well, now I'm kind of stuck. I got furloughed from my company, which is a nice way of laying somebody off but continuing to pay them while the company still can afford to. And I started working in a nursing home. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to start being productive and making a little bit more money so that I can hit that goal. And I was working 60 hours a week in a nursing home, which it was fortunate that I could do that because there were other clinicians that were out. But I just started looking, and I was like, dude, I cannot work 60 hours a week in a nursing home. I said, there's people that do that and they have the heart for it, and I have the heart for it, but I was like, man, in order to achieve my goals, I can't work 60 hours a week every single week to make these kind of paychecks. So I started looking into wholesaling. I read a couple of books just to get into it a little bit to see how I could achieve my goals. So there's 7 years to 7 figures and a couple of different other books that, like, I think 3 of them mentioned wholesaling. So I was like, all right, what is this? And I went to my buddy after I read a couple of books about wholesaling specifically, and I was like, hey man, look, what do you think about this? He's like, what is it? What is wholesaling? And I was like, well, basically you run marketing campaigns, try to find somebody that has a distressed property, get it under contract, and then sell the contract to an investor. And he's like, okay, well, what does it pay? And I was like, well, from what I'm hearing, you could make $10,000 to $15,000 if you find one. He's like, yeah, right. No way. And I was like, okay, well, sent him a couple books. This Mike at the time sent him a couple of books, and he started looking at it. And he was like, actually, this might be a good idea. If we're going to waste our time during COVID doing something, why don't we try to figure out how to build a business around this? So that was May of 2020. We were both locked in, and he was like, all right, well, let's start time blocking our days because we're still working. So in the mornings, we'd go drive for dollars between 5 and 7 a.m. Driving for dollars is you go just find different properties that may look distressed. So like what we did was we would get the trash schedule for everywhere in Northwest Indiana. People that didn't have their cans out the night before, we're like, all right, well, maybe there's something there. Plus, if the house looked really bad, then we're like, okay. So we'd, pinpoint the address.
Was that a recommendation in the book, or did you and Mike think, hey, maybe this is what?
It was a recommendation from just stuff we were listening to.
Smart, man. That's very smart.
If the cans aren't out,
no cans looks like crap.
Yeah, and it looks like crap. We're like, okay.
It's almost like an absentee owner,
exactly.
or vacant.
Plus, we didn't, plus we were kind of like just trying to get moving. We didn't know that you could just pull the list of absentee owners at that time, but like now you can. But like we were just trying to get moving.
And sorry to cut you off, because for anybody that my goal for this show is for anybody that doesn't understand even the simple terms of real estate investing, we could give the basic knowledge for them to have an understanding. And then also for people that do understand it, I also want to go high level so that people who understand or invest in real estate it can go both ways. So throughout the process, I'll probably ask you a couple hey, explain this, explain that, but then we can go into the weeds. So anyway, so you guys started driving around 5, 7 a.m.?
Yeah, 5 to 7 a.m. We'd pinpoint the addresses. We had a system that would allow us to look up who the owner was through public record, make a phone call, and you could see if they're interested in selling. Couldn't always find the right person, but it's a start, right? So 5 to 7, we'd do that, and then we'd come to a mutual place, like my house or his house, between 6 and 8 p.m., and we would just hit the phones. we'd have the numbers figured out. We'd have the owners figured out, and we just hit the phones from 6 to 8 every day. And we did that for like 4 months, I'd say. Finally found one. It's with my life insurance agent, actually. It's kind of funny.
Wow.
Parents set me up with life insurance policy when I was young, and he just so happened to have a house in Hammond that he was interested in selling just as is. So after 4 months of doing that, I talked to him and went over there, and he was like, "Man, do you think you can give me 78 for this thing?" And I was like, "Man, I'll be honest, it's my first time doing a transaction like this. I think that's a good price. Here's what I'm going to do." I told him I was going to wholesale it to another investor. He's like, "As long as I get 78, I really don't mind." So I was fully transparent with him, and I went out and I scoured Facebook. I talked to everybody that I could talk to that I knew in real estate investing. I posted signs all over Hammond, said house for sale. And we had it assigned in 2 days to a local buyer here that flips a ton of houses. And proof of concept, we made 10 grand. And, once the contract was signed, made 10 grand in about 14 days.
It's awesome.
So
it's beautiful.
It's pretty cool.
And for somebody that hears that, it's like, okay, because we have a lot of newer investors or people who are interested who talk to us, say, what about wholesaling? And they'll come to us for a lot of questions, come to us to ask stuff, understand what's going on. The thing that I want to point out, and typically this is my advice to this person, because I get it all the time. For you went out and you educated yourself on the process.
Yep.
Did you really have anybody that you were talking to as far as questions? Like, did you have a mentor at this time?
No.
Or were you just like, I'm educating myself, learning, listening to videos, reading books?
Well, we tried. I mean, I've always been the type of person to try to reach out and build a relationship regardless. Like, you know, or he knows too.
Yeah.
I'll shoot a text or a phone call, and I really don't care what time of day it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just trying to talk, dude. But so I was having conversations with people like that.
Yep.
I think the hardest thing was, you sit down with local home buyers and guys that are already doing this, and I think the biggest barrier to entry is being the guy that doesn't know anything. Being the guy who wants to go out there and wreak havoc and try to figure it out, but you don't know anything. And so Mike and I just kind of spun the wheels for about 4 months trying to talk to people, understand what they did and how they got to where they were, and it was productive to sit down and talk with them and learn that.
Yeah.
But just to get your first deal done, like, you have to do all the footwork. Nobody's gonna do it for you.
For sure. And that's the thing, man. There's a lot of educating that has to be done up front, just to at least understand the concept, the idea. So for in brief, 30 seconds or less, how would you explain wholesaling to somebody who's never heard about it before?
Yeah, so wholesaling, to be very clear, has been around for forever. Everybody wholesales. Costco is a wholesaling company, if you break it down to just the basics. But you go out and run a marketing campaign and find somebody with a distressed property that is willing to sell it under market value. You lock that person up into a contract because they're willing to sell for that price, because they understand that house needs work or they need to sell it quickly. With that contract, there's a clause in there that says you can assign it. You can also close on it if you have the funds to do so, but it says you can assign it to another buyer. So what you do is you go in, you market the contract. You're not selling the real estate, you're selling the contract, which makes it doable without a real estate license. You sell the contract to another investor for a fee.
And that fee is the spread of whatever
spread.
they're willing
So,
to pay versus what the seller wants.
So in a contract, if you lock up a property for $70,000, that can be assigned to another investor.
Yep.
Investor's like, all right, I'll take it for 80. You say, okay, I'm going to send you a document that says I'm assigning this to you for a $10,000 fee. You can close on it. On the closing statement, there is a assignment fee. And you get paid at closing on the HUD.
And this is why wholesaling is very attractive to new investors, because you didn't have any of your own money in there. You had time into that.
Correct.
You had effort. You had work. So you go out and find this. Now, why would an investor be willing to pay you $10,000?
Because the hardest part about real estate is
finding the deal.
Yeah.
So you go out and find the deal. And thus, Dynasty Real Estate is born.
Yep.
Right? So first deal's done. You make 10 grand. You're like, holy shit.
Yeah, what did that feel like
Well,
after 4 months?
well,
Of looking at garbage cans.
Heat of COVID.
that's basically what it was, man. So it felt good, but like honestly, Mike and I were kind of just like, all right, we knew this was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Proof of concept.
That's
like we didn't
awesome.
even. We celebrated a little bit, but it was like, all right, let's go find another one.
Yep.
So at this point, we'd already figured out, all right, you find a list, you skip trace it, you cold call it. We have some systems in place, and we're like, all right, let's find another one. We had a couple in the pipeline. So between September 21st was that closing, and the end of the year, we did another, I think, 7 deals.
It's awesome.
And
I remember this. I remember all this.
yeah, I
Now
know,
you're
we
talking
were
about
talking through it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
We did another 7, and then I was like, all right, proof of concept. Like I basically made 1 3/4 of what I would have made as a PTA. And Mike was like, yeah, same thing, dude. So I jumped ship for my job. I was like, all right, well, I think if I did this full time and he did this full time, that we could try to figure out a way to turn this into a business. We got enough runway for our expenses.
Mm-hmm.
I had done the house hack. I didn't have any expenses. So we both jumped ship and went into it full time in January of 2021.
2021. Boom. Look at that. And so when did Dynasty become official?
Yeah.
When did it become a company?
We set up the LLC in May of 2020.
Cool. So you started before your first deal happened.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that's what
Legally.
we thought was the
Yeah.
best idea there. So
Good,
just
man.
Start it and start funneling everything through that LLC.
Perfect. So then early on, it's you and Mike.
Yep.
Driving for dollars is not sustainable for a long period of time. So when did you stop driving for dollars, and then what did you start to do to find more deals and to find more sellers?
Oh man, you throw a bunch of money at the wall and hope it sticks. So we started with bandit signs. Everybody sees the yellow signs all over Northwest Indiana. Says we buy houses,
Yep.
etc. Bought a bunch of those, and I think it was Friday nights. We just throw them in the back of the car, make sure the trunk stayed a little bit open, and we just hit every corner, put 50 to 100 signs out.
Man.
It was fun, dude. It was
Yeah.
That's awesome.
super late at night, but we just ran around and did that, and got a couple of deals from that. I think 3 or 4. We started pulling lists. We bought an auto dialer. Just would stay on the auto dialer by ourselves, and then
You're talking to these sellers,
we're talking to
Yep.
the sellers initially,
making calls.
trying to lock up deals that way, and then we started actually doing consistent deal flow. So we did 7 through the first year, or the September
that's
21st
September to the
through
end.
December, and then we would do like 2 in January, 3 in February, and then all of a sudden we hit March, and we're like, all right, we have like 10 contracts in the pipeline right now because 3 months of consistency, and we're like, man, we got to hire somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So we hired a virtual assistant. He's still with us today. He's awesome. His name's Ryan. We trained him in cold calling and put him on a dialer, and it was very informal, but now our systems are a little bit better. And he crushed it for us. So
Nice.
we had him and Gerard, who's also still with us. They just got on the phones and they've crushed it since they started. We role played with them consistently, taught them a script, taught them how to talk to the sellers of distressed properties, and they're just killing it. And
Heck
they
yeah.
have basically raised and trained the team of outbound marketers that we have now, because I think there's 9 of them at this point, and they're all just Ryan and Gerard, just kind of taking it.
Teach them the process
And
of
stop the
selling
process,
and the
yeah.
script process,
Yep.
the conversation. So all
Yep.
those outbound marketers are calling.
Yep.
And so, one thing that I've always been impressed with you is like there's this big wall of people that when they want to start a business, where when it comes to bringing people in and hiring people, it's immediately like they freeze, because the process of teaching and leading and bringing people in and suffocating for a lot of people. And when you and I were talking throughout this whole process, I just loved watching naturally you being like, this is just what happens with a business. And you don't come from an entrepreneurial background.
No.
It's just, you know what I mean? You just have this like, okay, we need to bring someone in here. okay, we need to bring someone in here, right? And then these pieces start to go into place. So from September of 2020 to the end, you did 7 deals. How many transactions did you guys do in 2021 with wholesale deals?
Just over 50.
So 50 wholesale deals in 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the end of 2021, because we're coming up on Q4 of 2022 now, but like, how big was the company? How many people were in the company then?
So we went from Mike and I at the beginning of January to we hired our first 2 VAs. So that was 4. And then end of 2021, we had, I think, 7 virtual assistants and 2 in-person employees on top of Mike and myself. And we added another business partner, Jake.
Jake's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. Mitch works a lot with Jake, right?
Great addition.
Jake's a good dude.
Yeah,
great
Jake's a great
addition to
dude.
the team. He's awesome.
And the thing too, and the kind of the natural progression, and I want to take this down to like the smaller investor to the person that's doing what you're doing, is someone might start wholesaling, and as they start to build up their deal flow, their investor base, which a big part of wholesaling deals is you have to have people to sell them to, right? You have to have that buyer pool of investors that are looking to buy deals, whether they're a flipper, which those numbers are different, right? So you have to understand, what is a flipping investor looking for in their numbers to flip a property? What's a rental property investor looking for in their numbers? So as somebody who wants to be a good wholesaler, not only do you have to understand market values, not only do you have to find these sellers, you got to find these deals, then you have to be able to understand the numbers as, okay, the seller will sell for X, but what is it worth, right? And then which investor is this best to sell to based on, is it better for a flip or is it better for a wholesale? So you have to understand all aspects of real estate investing. So simply put, like he said, a wholesaler, yes, you don't have any money, like you're not putting money into the deals, but you need to understand the business enough to where you need to understand the market, the area in that market. You need to understand the pricing in that market. You need to understand what investors are looking at for in that market. You can't just say, oh, I found a wholesale deal, and give no other value to anybody else. You have to be able to give realistic numbers to somebody, because if you got a deal, you're going to build an investor base. And if you can find more deals, you'll build an investor base, right? So they've got the money they want to buy, they want to flip, whatever it is that they want to do. So naturally, as you guys built your wholesaling business and your cash flow started to grow and your business started to grow, now it was, okay, what's the next step, right? And then you guys started looking into some more buying holds, and then now you're flipping business, right? So which if you think about it, outside of a company, let's say somebody starts investing in real estate, wholesaling is a good place to start. Why? Because they don't have any money.
Right.
And it's a great place to learn that business, to understand what flippers are looking for, rental property investors are looking for. But as you build that up, now someone who starts wholesaling deals, they've got money saved up. Well, hey, I could go flip my own property, or I could go buy and hold my own property, right? You're doing the same thing, just on a bigger scale, because it's a company versus I'm this individual person who wholesaled some deals and now I bought a rental, right? So talk about the progression of that as you guys have grown.
Yeah, it's a good segue. So like I was talking, there's a barrier to entry to wholesale. So like the barrier to entry is you don't know a thing. You get in there and it's effort. You don't need money. You start out just like anybody else. You don't have a ton of money. So you can go buy $800 of bandit signs and maybe, a list or 2, but most of it is your effort. And this is why wholesalers get a bad rap, is because a lot of people stay in that window, right? So early on, you lock up deals that other wholesalers have locked up. You try to sell them for way too high because you don't know the values. I was there. You get a bad rap for it. Happens. You move through it. But what starts to happen is the more time you spend in individual neighborhoods in each, sub-market of Northwest Indiana, the more you learn what the values are. You learn what investors are going to pay in those areas, and you can start to underwrite and say, hey, this is a good flip deal. I can wholesale this to a flipper, or say, hey, this is something that I can sell to somebody who's going to buy a rental property and try to burr out of it. You can say, hey, I'm going to sell this to somebody who provides turnkey properties for somebody who's going to pay retail values for a rental property, right? So once you start to understand those things, you can segue into different parts of real estate investing. So now we are actively flipping, also wholesaling to flippers. We wholesale to people who buy stuff as rentals for the burr strategy. We're trying to get into turnkey models. There's a interesting barrier to entry with that. But yeah, you can start moving into different things. So right now we're flipping. We actually did our first flip, bought it from another investor, gave us a really good opportunity to do our first flip. So he's wholesaled to us. So we flipped that, and I think it closed right before the end of 2021. So we started just with one flip at the end of 2021, and fast forward 9 months, and now we have 13 projects actively going, and
It's awesome.
got proof of concept, and we're hoping to just continue growing in that space. Rental properties, we've grown that a little bit, but I've always had the belief that you build a business that generates cash flow consistently
And deal flow, right?
and deal flow.
Because if you got
consistently.
deal flow, then when your cash flow is
Right.
flowing, your deal flow is flowing, you got
Yeah,
bigger
right.
opportunities for
So-
long-term holds.
So you take that revenue and that cash flow and you park it in rentals only when that business is built,
Yes.
because you don't want to. Cash is your gas. You don't want to put out your fire because you're taking away the gas from the entire system. So
Yes. And as you've built this system for your wholesaling business, that's one flow of income. As you build this flipping form of income, now you've got multiple ways
Yeah.
of revenue coming to your company, and you can put it towards bigger, larger rental property, apartment building
Yeah.
type assets, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the goal?
that's the goal. Everybody's gets into real estate in some way, shape, or form because they want the passive income.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody realizes that passive income is a result of years of building a cash flow, base of cash flow. So like you guys had Al on the show.
Yep.
Al's buying hundreds of apartment complexes and units at a time, which is sweet. Like I would kill to be in that
I
position.
love
right
Al,
now.
man. I just sent them
Yeah.
sent them a text the other day. I'm meeting with Ferris and Tarek next week for some lunch just to
Yeah.
catch up with them, just
Awesome
to
guys,
hear about
yeah.
what they're doing, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But like you said, how's Al buying 500 units in 6 months?
It's
Lot of
delayed
cash flow.
It's a delayed gratification, man. He
Yes.
built what he built over a course of 10 years
Yes.
and didn't void from the path at all.
Go back and watch that. If you haven't seen that episode, that's our most viewed episode.
Yeah.
Is Al's.
Yeah.
It is such a good episode to hear his philosophy on stuff. The fact that we sat down with a guy that is that successful, but how did he get there? Like you said, he's flipping 200 houses a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how you buy 500 apartment
Yeah.
units in 6
For-
months, right?
For the course of 10 years.
Yeah.
And left his cash in the business. So everybody's like, oh, how did he buy, 300, 400 units? He saved all of it for 10 straight years and then just he's starting to deploy it now.
Yeah.
And that's the passive income that everybody's like, oh, I want that. It's like, you don't get that right up
Delayed
front.
gratification,
you get that
right?
10 years down the road
Yes.
after you've been crushing it for so long and stayed
Yes.
on the path and not got distracted by shiny objects.
Yep.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely a through line for all of the guests that we've had on the show, including yourself and us, is just like delayed gratification.
Yeah.
If viewers of the show take anything away, like that is one thing to write down, that the farther you can push that off. And in today's society, nobody wants to do that. Everybody, everything that we want, we have on our phone. We
Yes.
can get whatever we want right now. You got Amazon, you got Netflix, you got everything. But if you can push through that, that's where real growth happens.
Yeah, man. Did you guys have Brad on the show?
No, we haven't had Brad on.
Okay, so Brad Messina.
Brad would be great.
He's
Yeah, that would be a good
I
episode.
don't know
Awesome.
why I didn't think to
I
have
was gonna
Brad on.
say, yeah,
I'm going
he's-
to text him.
awesome business
Brad's
owner
awesome.
here. He's a property manager for the other clients of you guys that would be interested in that side of it. Mm-hmm. You can kind of segue it. We can find the properties. He can manage them. But
Yes.
Brad always says that he's build businesses by real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So you build a business that makes you a ton of money, and in exchange, after it's built, you go buy a ton of real estate, and that's how you build wealth. So,
I love how simple Brad makes it too. You know,
Yeah.
like, and that's why it'd be good to have him, because he's just like, yeah,
He's
man,
like the-
he's just, everything, it's fine. Just,
I love
buy
Brad,
it,
dude.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine.
He's the Midwest
so,
Robert Kiyosaki.
yeah,
dude, I love being around Brad. You just feel good, and you're like, yeah, like when you're done, you're like, dude, I could do that too, you know? He's fun, man. But
Yeah,
no,
awesome guy.
I love, man, I love what you've done, and I feel like this episode we could probably make 2 hours, and we would really enjoy it. What do you got? Any questions you want to throw at?
Yeah,
him?
so just kind of like going back to when you made your first hire, you got a couple of VAs, like what was that like as an entrepreneur? I know your mindset on things, but I know that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that watch the show and they, like Al said, struggle with that. You know, they don't want to delegate stuff. They want to hold on to it. But like, what was, after you made that hire, what did that free you up to do?
We struggled amongst ourselves trying to be ready for that first one. It's like, you know, when are you ready? When are your finances ready to bring on somebody? And, you know, it's still a conversation we have when we're hiring people in the office. But it was tough just because you have to be like, all right, well, this is part of growing,
Part of business.
you know, we can hire somebody to do a task at, you know, $7 an hour, which is a good pay for where they're at. And in exchange, I can go focus on talking to sellers, running appointments, and locking up a contract. So, you know, you have to prioritize your tasks based on dollar amounts, and running appointments is more important. So if they can schedule it, then you can, you know,
lock
you
up
can
that
the
deal.
deals. Yep.
Highest and best use of your time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think that this has been a phenomenal episode, dude.
Yeah.
Al, you got anything
So
else?
what I would say, just as a little plug while we're here.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. We are doing flips actively. The other thing, like I said, we're trying to get into is more of a turnkey model. So for people who don't understand, turnkey investing is you're buying a rental property fully renovated. All of the CapEx items, such as roof, windows, furnace, water heater, etc., are all new within the last 5 to 7 years or have been serviced. Right? So you're buying a fully stabilized rental property, and you're just buying in for cash flow. Right? We're trying to get into that model. So if you guys have investors that are looking to pick up fully renovated rental properties, we have a management partner that we can connect with on the back end. So they're truly just buying a rental property that's already built with a tenant in it. It's already cash flowing. There's already management there, so you don't have to worry about, you know, dealing with
Toilets, termites.
Here you go. That's it.
Tenants.
Yep, exactly. You don't have to deal with all of the stuff that comes along with a rental property because there's already management in place. So that's what we're getting into. If anybody's interested in that or just kind of wants to get involved in the investment side of the business, definitely reach out. There's opportunity for us to be able to kind of connect and work in that capacity.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, we've spent most of our time talking pretty tactical just on real estate, but 95% of our conversations are not like this. Like when you and I meet, we talk a lot more about, like, you know, the things that are like things that are way more important than what we're talking about now. And so maybe we spend a couple minutes on that so that people know you're not just this dude that's just like
A robot.
building this business and crushing it and adding people and
Newlywed.
man. I mean, so newly married, gonna be a father, right, to a daughter.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
A lot of
man.
stuff happening,
man.
personally. So married in June. Baby is on the way and due at the end of January.
Awesome, man.
So I'm excited. A lot of stuff going on personally, but yeah, it's the wife that kind of holds everything together for me.
Sure.
So
Well, and when you and I talk, we usually sit down and talk about we talk about our faith, we talk about our wives and our families, we talk about our goals and all these things. What made you start? Like, why do you, the question that I love being asked and I love to ask people is, why do you do what you do, right? Like, why are you doing all this? Why are you taking, because every time I drive past, like when I go train jiu-jitsu in the mornings and I drive past your office at 7 a.m. and your car's there. And there's very few people that genuinely, I think, work to the level that you do, not only on the, you know, people talk about working smart versus working hard. You do both, right? We talk a lot about, you know, organization, like organizing our companies and who key hires and making sure that we're the optimal leaders that we can be and becoming better versions of ourselves and all of this stuff, putting people in the best spots for themselves, all of that, right? To provide the best services, to help people. Like, so all of this that you do and all this work that you put in, why do you do what you do?
it's family. Family's the most important thing, and being able to make an impact secondly. So it's a conversation I always have with my wife is just we make sacrifices on time right now. So she's a trooper, man, because I'll work. I leave the house at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't get home till 7 p.m. And she knows that there is a common goal to be able to elevate our family to the level that we can make a significant impact on generations in our family, but as well as the local community that we are in and we actively serve. So just being able to put ourselves in a place where we have the ability and the resources to be able to make a massive impact on people. So number one, it's the home front, I think, is the most important thing. And we named the company Dynasty for a reason. It's because the owners of Dynasty want to build a dynasty, their families to build a dynasty, and to help make an impact on the people that we serve, because we have the resources to do so. Mm-hmm. So I think that is the main reason that all the work goes in from everybody on the team, and that's why we do what we do.
Yeah. And it's hard to get everything about somebody in a 30-minute show, but if we were like 3-hour Joe Rogan styles, we might be able to get a little bit more. But
I like this. We can just we can talk about it all you want.
We can talk about it all day.
Just extend it.
But it's good, man, because like I said, the majority of our conversations are those types of things. It's not, yes, you're building a business, you're building a for-profit business, right? But there's so many things that that we talk about and that you talk about, like that you want to do outside of just real estate, and why you're doing all of this, and it's awesome, man. And I'm thankful to be such a good friend of yours. I'm grateful that you're here. And I think for people that are interested in real estate investing, we mentioned multiple different things here, a couple different terms, some jargon that unless you knew real estate, it's tough to understand. And if you're interested in it, obviously you can reach out to us. You can reach out to Seth for some more info. I think what you can take, though, if you're someone who's interested in real estate investing and you haven't, I think it's really important to see his, the steps and the actions that he took. We very briefly went over the fact that from 5 to 7 in the morning, you would drive around and probably not the greatest of areas to find rough houses. That's how many people actually do that? And you talk about your schedule even now, right? And you have this successful business. So these are things, man, that I think you guys need to see, the work ethic side of things and the time that you put into it, because that's one of the keys to success, on top of having why you're doing what you're doing. But no, man, I love what you guys are doing. And before your wholesaling company was here, I didn't really know of any wholesaling companies in the region. I think there was maybe one that comes to mind, but outside of that, it just seems like now, as you guys are building and growing, you're providing a lot of value for investors and buyers, and people are looking, and for the market. People want to buy now turnkey properties. People want to buy nice flips. Like what you're able to do, and what you guys have done in a very short period of time is awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Another thing that we've done, you were talking about trying to figure out investing and how to get started. We started the meetup group, REI Indiana.
Yes.
And we have paused it over the summer just because we wanted to make sure that, people were available when we held the event. And so that's going to be coming up here either mid-October or early November again. But
phenomenal event.
It's just an event to give people who are interested in real estate investing an idea as to how to get started, and we bring different guests in there and they talk about their journeys and their businesses, and it could be from Al Perez flipping houses to Ferris and Tarek and how they're able to broker deals or also take them down on their own from the large multifamily space. I talked about wholesaling a little bit. We had another guy that I think does it better than us out of Atlanta fly in, and he talked about wholesaling at one of the events, and that was awesome. So we just try to provide outlets for people to understand if you want to get into real estate investing.
And I think that's a good example of showing who you are, because you do that for free, and it doesn't. I don't even think do people pay to get in? I'm trying to remember. There's a couple, but yeah, it's literally free to show up.
And it's funny because people were asking me, what's your angle here? I'm like, dude, there's no angle. I know how hard it was to get started and to try to talk to, the 15 top investors in the area, and how hard it was to get them to take the time out of their day to talk to somebody who doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
So if you could put all those guys in one room and have an open conversation and allow for Q&A and question to happen, you don't have to go out and take all the time in the world to recruit the knowledge and sit down with them and talk. That's
a good example just to show who you are. Totally. That's a perfect way of showing that this isn't just all about, because you could charge so much more money for that and make those very profitable events. But you don't. It's just free.
It's just I think
show up. I want to help you out.
Yeah, the team
It's awesome.
collectively is just kind of, we want to help other people. And to an extent, it's, if you educate the market, you can also own the market in a sense, but it's not really about that. It's just, if you have questions, to know that our team is somebody that you can approach and talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, I've introduced quite a few people to you just because
Yeah,
people will be
yep.
like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm like, I know a guy that knows everybody that's good at that.
Yep.
Yeah, and even if I don't know, I think somebody on our team knows somebody who does it really, really well.
Yeah.
And we can kind of make a connection and just be like, hey, man, if you have any other questions, let us know, and we'll connect you with somebody that could help you a little bit more.
Well, and if you're somebody that knows absolutely nothing about real estate investing, go to Google or YouTube and just start learning. Grab a couple books. Don't first reach.
Yeah.
We talk
I think
about that
we
all
all
the
got
time.
a degree from there.
And I'll get a couple more. But the educate yourself before you start to talk to people, because if you come to to Seth, which you'll take your time to do it, but if you come to Seth and you have no idea, you're just like, yeah, I'm interested in it. Okay, what are you looking to do? I don't really know. I'm just interested in it. That you're not bringing value to somebody that is doing it. You got to find a way to bring them value. Hey, can I work for you? Could I do this? Could I do that? If you're really, really interested. So find a way to learn and educate yourself, read some books, and listen to some people, go to some seminars, come to REI Indiana events.
Yeah,
you're going to learn
absolutely.
just by coming to that. You're going to meet new people just from coming to that. So anyway, appreciate having you on, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Two things.
Yes.
One, life hack that I've learned that has helped me get a lot of insight from a lot of people is when you approach somebody for help, like you said, definitely educate yourself on the front end. But I always ask people, what books do you recommend that I read about, becoming an agent? If I was talking to you or something like that. People will pour into you when you ask that question.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two, you're looking to expand your team, right?
Yep.
You want to talk about that a little bit before we wrap up?
Yeah, so we are actively looking for a sales guy.
Okay.
We're at the point now where we're starting to plan for next year and looking for somebody to fill in a sales role to kind of take some pressure off of myself and some of the owners. So looking for somebody in a sales position. Also in project management, we have a couple of good prospects there, but we're definitely looking for a guy who's interested in sales. So what we're looking for there is somebody who is willing to slam the phones, man. Hitting the phones, you're following up, you're running appointments, you're locking up contracts at a significant discount so we can flip them, wholesale them, or keep them as a rental. So.
And the project management side? Is that for the flipping?
It's for the flipping company, yeah. So we have 13 projects there. We want to be able to get to a point where we're consistently managing about 20 of them. And, it takes a significant chunk of people's time.
I got a guy.
I think I know the guy you're thinking of.
Yep.
But that's awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I
Good to have
appreciate
you
it.
here,
Thanks
brother.
for having me,
Yeah,
guys.
man. Yeah. Thank you guys for hopping on. And
appreciate it.
see you soon. Thanks for watching.